Hello, people in the room. Hello to everyone on Zoom. Welcome to our Sunday meeting on law and ethics. So let's just get started. We're doing Sunday seminar. So first of all, I'm going to wait for about a minute. The flag for this meeting is SIGPwny. I am not a lawyer, and not is in caps because I'm not a lawyer. This is not official legal advice. I can't give you official legal advice. I'm giving you advice that I've learned from the classes that I'm taking. So I'm going to wait about a minute and then we'll move on. In the meantime, I'm going to pause the recording. I can't. I can only stop it. All right. Oh, how's everyone's midterms going? Good. Zoom midterms going good. I can't see any of your responses. I'm just realizing that. Let's bring up the chat.
Is it challenge?
It's under, yep, thank you. It's under fall 2021. Yep. Yeah, so to chat, it is under fall 2021 meeting flags because this is a seminar meeting. I want to, give a little thank you for you all being here, but we don't exactly have challenges for this meeting because we're just talking. So, yeah. All right, that's enough time, I think. So, real quick announcements. O2F, we are in like third place right now. That gets us $100. If we push a little bit further, we can get $300. That would be pretty cool, I think. So, yeah, that it ends at 5 p.m. today. So right after this is over, we got about 2 more hours to, push a little bit harder, finish a few challenges, make a little bit of money. That might be fun. Shirts. I sent out a mass email to everyone who has not picked up their shirt yet. If you don't pick up your shirt or don't email me, I'm going to give them away. So if you didn't request a shirt, you might get one because I'm going to just start giving them away. And then server repair update. This one's important. Nate and I spent a large amount of yesterday repairing the server. And it's almost there. We have a fresh install of ESXi, which is the thing that we use to manage all of our Linux instances. And then we're going to plug that back into the actual server and start to get things up. And then we can do other management later. So we're almost there, which is really, really great. And then lastly, again, I'm going to plug it again. We have a Minecraft server where you can test hack clients that you've made. It's mc.sigpwny.club if you want to join that. All right, there's the announcements. Cool. Ethics. What not to do. We're going to start with what not to do. Tech people can be assholes sometimes. There's a lot of ways that we can be assholes. Examples of what not to do. Theranos, which is in the news again because there's finally going to be a trial for it. Basically, it was a crazy, we can analyze everything with a single prick of blood, and it turned out to basically be a Ponzi scheme, which is an illegal financial scheme where you put in money and then you try to give fake returns using previous investors' money. And then Facebook with the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where basically they sold private data of very intimate details about people's lives, like how they align politically and their family members and family intimate details. And I think there was even private messages or something involved in that really unethical stuff. And they sold it to a political action group, Cambridge Analytica. Then the NSA, spying on every single citizen in the United States. So there's a lot of ways that tech people can do unethical things. You may kind of think, how is the NSA spying on everyone like a tech problem? There needs to be, the answer there is, there needs to be technology that exists to support these platforms. There are engineers designing MySQL databases that NSA analysts can look through quickly to find that information. There are programmers developing flight tracking systems on missiles. There's lots of things that are really important to programming and are really important to security as well that ethics and the law are really critical to. So let's really let's get some ethical foundations. I'm assuming nobody knows anything here. So we're going to start with the really basic ethical model, and it's going to be a little bit interactive. So we're going to start with the trolley problems. This is a really famous ethical question. You are a switch operator near a trolley. The trolley is going down the track towards 5 people. It has no brakes, and if you don't do anything, it is going to hit and kill those 5 people. You can pull the switch and save the 5 people, but at the cost of killing 1 person who is on the other rail. What do you do? This is an open question. Speak up, raise your hand, spam in chat. What do you do, Nate?
Okay, on one side of the story, we minimize the number of people that fail.
Okay.
On the other hand, if you choose to do nothing, you can't be blamed for killing the person.
This is true.
Even though more people will die.
This is true. So I'll repeat that for Zoom. If you pull the lever, you're effectively minimizing the total loss. But if you don't pull the lever, as Nate said, you cannot be blamed for doing anything. You can't be blamed for killing someone by pulling that lever. So who else has thoughts about what they would do in this situation? It's a crazy hypothetical, right? This is never gonna, this exact situation is never gonna happen in real life, but we're gonna talk about practical ones. So any other thoughts? Yeah. Okay. All right. So this applies in tech actually a lot. So what should the self-driving car do in these 2 situations? Because there's actual programming that exists. When a self-driving car detects a crash, it can protect either the people outside the car or it can protect the people inside the car. There's actual programming that Tesla has had to do that does these things. So in this situation, what is the ethical thing to do? How can a computer make an ethical decision? It's an yeah.
I feel like from the perspective of Tesla, they have more obligation to protect their customers than the bystander.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. I heard this, again, this is pretty absurd, but I heard something brought up as like an advertising thing. Like people put like no whatever on it, like, oh, we're definitely not going to kill the driver or whatever. So if it's a situation where it's like the driver versus the crowd,
Yeah.
lowest common denominator being, well, it's not going to kill you for sure, no matter what the externalities are, because you're the person buying it.
Yeah, you're the person buying a Tesla. You want it advertised as, hey, in that situation, we're not going to kill you. We're going to kill the other people.
Oh, yeah.
Which is morbid, but and people have died from this.
Oh, yeah.
Like there was someone doing self-driving testing, and there was a lady walking across the street. I think it was for Uber. There was a lady walking across the street. It was late at night. The person driving the person like supposed to be supervising was just sitting on an iPad, like just watching like YouTube videos or something. And he was just sitting there and he killed someone. Well, he didn't kill someone. The self-driving algorithm didn't detect that person and it killed someone. So there is legitimate consequence to these actions and to this code. Yeah.
Well, we could also argue that if as an advertising scheme, but at the same time, the car it's likely to go I do it's not like we put out.
So you're saying like should fix this situation in the first place?
Yeah, that's a good point. Why would we ever have to be in this situation in the first place? It's true.
I just don't know that. I feel like any specific law to deal with this situation, probably the issue is more about solve it, just because of how specific the situation has to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And this applies to security too. You can think up crazy examples here. Like there's a worm and there's 2 plugs. You only have time to run to one of them before the worm gets there. One of them wipes out a hospital. One of them wipes out like your important data for your company. What do you do? Right? Like there are practical security examples here. You can find a vulnerability, yada, yada. It might affect some people, yada, yada, yada. There's tons of examples here as it applies to security. You can think up them on your own. So this brings up the three most popular ethical models. The first one that a lot of people mentioned, that Nate mentioned, was utilitarianism, which essentially is whatever creates the most utility is good, or whatever minimizes the most loss is good. So in that case, the self-driving car or the trolley, you would pull the lever and only kill the one person because you're saving 5 people. That is, a lot of people see utilitarianism as like the first thing that they see in like early ethics classes, and they're like, oh, I'm a utilitarian. Like, I want to optimize good, I want to minimize loss. But then, like, you get later into life and realize that kind of two things. One, what causes utility is arbitrary, and two, it's a lot more murky. So it is an ethical model that exists, but it's not the best. Then let's move on to deontology, which is duty-based ethics. This was created by Immanuel Kant, who's a famous philosopher and studies ethics, ethicist. I don't know, philosopher. And deontological ethics basically say that morality is founded in one moral agent, so like a person or like someone who has morals, obligations to another person. And the thing there is that people are the end, and you don't want to use something as a means to an end, specifically a person. So in that case, with the trolley problem, you would not pull the lever, because pulling the lever would mean you're using that one person as a means to save those 5 people. So deontological ethics are, again, flawed. No ethical system is perfect. Deontological ethics are flawed because morality is founded in obligations. What defines obligations? A lot of these things are flawed because it's arbitrary. It's completely arbitrary. There is no ground truth for what is utility. There is no like ground truth for what is our third popular ethics model, which is virtue or character-based ethics. Virtue ethics basically say that morality is grounded in virtue, and again, it's flawed because what is virtue is completely relative to culture. So in virtue-based ethics with the trolley problem, you'd look at these people and say, is this person honest? Is this person like courageous? Is what I would be doing honest? If I was to pull the lever, is that the honest thing to do? Is that the courageous thing to do? The problem with virtue ethics is that, first of all, a lot of that doesn't apply in many actions. And second of all, it's completely arbitrary to your culture. So something that we may consider to be like a good virtue may be a really bad virtue somewhere else. So those are the five ethical, the 3 standard ethical models that are like the most popular and that you would learn in like CS 210. So yeah, so what does the car do? How does this apply to security? Big one would be something like incident response. How do you quickly determine like what needs to be done right away if there's a cyber attack? Another thing there is vulnerability research and reporting. So if you're doing research, how are you going to go about that ethically? And how are you not going to do something that would be considered, unethical? Echo. And then lastly, social engineering attacks. So if you are going to be like actually talking to someone and actually interacting with someone, where is that line between ethical and unethical there? So this is all, it's all really important, really practical stuff. And even more importantly than that, just learning how to operate ethically and learning how to operate properly will be really important for like the future. So security ethics. Security ethics are really all about mitigating risk. That risk is the expectation of loss as expressed as like a probability. This is ripped directly from CS 210. So it really is like, if I do this thing while I'm doing research, what's the probability that it might cause damage, or what's the probability that it might like be bad? So then Stephen Levy came up with some interesting hacker ethics, and I just put all of them on here. Feel free to read them. They're not super great, particularly who thinks all information should be free? Anybody here?
Freezing freedom or freezing money, I guess.
Just freedom of access to information. Okay, Nate?
You could think of, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing necessarily, but on one end, the store, on one end, is that say that this information that should be free is highly dangerous to society.
Exactly.
Should that be able to access this?
If information is free, please write your credit card number, expiration date, and the 3 digits on the back on the board, please.
So I
Or-
can all the credit card numbers, and one of them is mine.
Someone got banned from Twitter for dropping every single credit card number, which was just, it was like a 20 gigabyte file of every number from 0 to like 12 trillion or something like that. I don't know. But it was like all of them from 16 zeros to 16 nines. That's every credit card number in there. But like, it's funny. So yeah. And then another big thing that he had here was that activities in cyberspace are virtual or not. I think it was maybe number 7, it doesn't matter. There used to be a separation from what is virtual and what is real. Like computers used to be this thing that people would go on and it would be like a whole different world. That has mostly, it's completely eroded at this point. What is your virtual life and what is your real life are starting to be more integrated than ever. And with the pushes for like this dystopian version of the metaverse, it's going to be like even more so. And I don't know how much we can push that off. So the world is becoming more and more integrated digitally and in real life. And if that just means that security will begin to affect our real lives more and more as time goes on. So let's jump a little bit. Ethical security research. When you are hacking systems, you want to do it with 3 things. You want to do it with explicit permission, and that will go into the law. You want to do it with expertise, which means you don't want to be just recklessly going around and doing whatever when you're in a system. You want to generally know what you're doing, know what you're looking for, and really importantly, know that what you're doing is not going to cause damage. And then also proper documentation. Make sure that as you're doing things, you write down what you're doing so that first of all, you can replicate it. And then second of all, you can tell people who need to know what you were doing, what you did, so they can understand and they can do something about it if you find something. So that's, security research. And then if you find something, there's vulnerability disclosure. So there's a few different models to vulnerability disclosure. There's a few different, ethical thoughts to vulnerability disclosure. The first one is non-disclosure. You have a question? Non-disclosure, where you can keep it secret. You sell it secretly, or you use it for your own gain. The government comes and shows up at your door and says, hey, this vulnerability is ours now. Or the government sues you and says, hey, you can't publish RSA because we discovered this and it's a military asset. And if you discovered it on your own, you're not allowed to. That is a thing that actually happened. And they had to actually redesign RSA a little bit. Or was it RSA or AES? It was like some big encryption scheme. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Was it RSA?
He
No.
was also a professor at SIGPwny.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So there was someone, just a cryptography researcher, who discovered a new cryptographic model, and the government showed up at his door and said, you can't release this. The military is using it. So I don't remember what happened. It eventually got released.
Yeah, I think what happened was he opened the case against the government, and the judge ended up saying a lot of, or maybe this is something later, but there was a suit open, and the judge effectively said, I agree with your concerns, but a lot of them seem very hypothetical, and none of them are actual pressing issues today. So if any of the situations that you pose hypothetically do come up, feel free to bring that to us. But as of now,
Interesting.
Yeah.
So for anyone on Zoom who couldn't hear that, basically what ended up happening was they said, what you say is interesting, but unfortunately, all of the situations that you propose are largely hypothetical at the moment. So if anything more practical comes up, it's valid. So it was, he didn't get to publish his findings?
It said anything involving law is pretty complicated.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a whole career path around law and computer law. So anyway, non-disclosure, you can keep it secret, you can sell it, you can use it for your own gain. Questionably ethical. Same thing with full disclosure. You can tell literally everyone, you just drop it, just drop a bone on your Twitter. Just like, drop a 0 day against somebody on your Twitter. Also, probably don't do that unless you are making sure people can protect themselves from that vulnerability. And even then, it's questionably ethical because people are going to immediately take that and figure out how to weaponize it. So, be careful with that. Then there's limited disclosure, which is you can privately disclose to the vendor, which is basically the company making the software or the thing, the vulnerability so they can try and develop a patch. Be really careful with this one because depending on what company it is, they can attack you for it or sue you for it or try to get you arrested for it, which we'll go into. Then the last most popular thing that you probably should do is responsible disclosure. Basically, how responsible disclosure works is there's 4 steps. You disclose the vulnerability in private to the community or to the organization or to the company that has this vulnerability. So that is, you reach out to Google and say, hey, I found this thing. Or you reach out to the Wi-Fi consortium and say, hey, I found a vulnerability in Wi-Fi, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Second thing you do is you talk to the vendor and agree on a deadline for full disclosure, which basically means if this is not fixed in a certain amount of days, I will release it fully. This vulnerability will go public completely.
I think there's one of the examples where someone found like 3 0 days of Apple, and it's like 2 years ago, and Apple fixed like only one of them in like subtly in the pad, and the security guy gets going back and he did the full disclosure.
Yeah. People do it, and it's a risk when you go full disclosure because then these companies can sue you for damages because you're the person who released it. And it might not hold up, but they're going to try. And companies that are $1 trillion big have legal teams that are much bigger than yours and can run you through court until you run out of money. So we'll talk about that too, actually. So, well, really, do this only if it's not like a shitty company. That's, that's the piece of advice that I kind of skipped over. But like, really, unfortunately for those shitty companies, they're not going to get a lot of good vulnerability research because Oracle's really bad about it. But like, if you drop a vulnerability report against some companies, they will just come back at you with like a lawsuit or a cease and desist. It's like, okay, I'm doing a thing for you, not expecting pay, and you just tell me to stop. All right, fine. Keep it vulnerable. So then step 3 is to maintain communication with both parties. So the vendor or the company or the organization, I'm just say organization, communicates with the person who reported the vulnerability, and the person who reported the vulnerability continues to communicate with the organization. And then if it's patched, you fully disclose it so people can update it, or if it's past the deadline, you can also fully disclose it. Interesting example of this, right as I was taking this course in 2019, actually, there was a 0 day in Apple where you could FaceTime someone. And then while you're FaceTiming someone, you can have someone, you can FaceTime yourself on a different device. And if you FaceTime yourself, it would patch you through to that other person and pick up the phone without them realizing. I have no idea how someone found this, but they reported it to Apple via direct message, and Apple ignored it completely. So then they posted the video on Twitter, and the next day Apple disabled that feature. So it was, it's like, that's kind of responsible disclosure in action. And, I guess virality, like that went viral right away. So that plays a part into it. I think the things, yeah, go ahead.
Similarly, I found this really weird bug or whatever in Microsoft Teams. So we used to have school classes on that. And usually teachers disable screen sharing, right? But whenever I minimize the screen, so there was a small screen with like camera and mic and everything.
Mhm.
If you press screen share from there, you could share your screen.
Interesting.
It was really weird. I didn't report it anywhere. I just used it to like track my teachers in classes, but
Yeah.
it was
And I mean-
fun. I could screen share and we just never knew how I would.
Yeah, and I mean, that's not necessarily a vulnerability, right? But that's a bug that's exploitable. So that's, you can take that bug and you could use it for harassment. So say you're at like you're in a big event and you don't like, you can like, there's slides and you decide to say, I'm going to put up my own slides. That is, that's harassment. You can use bugs for harassment. So like I found a bug in a thing that I'm not going to say on record. It might not necessarily be a bad bug, but I could use it to harass people. And that's bad because you're still using something for unintended purposes in a malicious manner, which is just not good. Don't do that. So yeah, that's responsible disclosure. Kind of get that into your heads when you do vulnerability research. It's the recommended way to do it. But also, especially, don't even do vulnerability research if you know the company's shitty and might try and sue you or get you arrested. So really the best way to do it is with bug bounties. So something like HackerOne, which is a dedicated platform that will define things like scope, so what you can and can't attack. It rewards, so like if you submit a certain vulnerability, how much is it worth? And like proper process for how to report bugs and vulnerabilities. And then Pwn to Own, which is basically like that, but it's like HackerOne, but in a very short period of time, where they tell you to look at a specific piece of software, and if you can find 0 days in it, which is again undisclosed vulnerabilities, they just give you money. And then also there's a company specific bug bounty. So there's a lot of companies that'll have like dedicated platforms for it. I think Google has its own dedicated platform. I'm not sure. I usually, if anything, just use HackerOne. So now let's move on to the second part of this presentation, which is the law. Please don't go to jail. It would really suck if any one of you had to go to jail or got expelled from the school or any of those things. So we're going to talk about that now. Crimes. There are a lot of them, and there are a lot of different versions of crimes. There are 3 general classes of crimes. Misdemeanors are the lowest class of like actual crimes. Below that, there's technically violations, but you literally can't go to jail for a violation. That's like a traffic violation or something like that. If you like, those are usually like a fine or maybe community service. And if you do that, if you don't do that enough, it can become a crime. So it goes violations, which are really nothing, then misdemeanors, which are crimes that are punishable with less than 1 year of prison time. Then there's felonies, which are crimes of the severity that they are punishable by 1 year or more of prison time. And then there are capital offenses, which are crimes that are punishable by death. Like that is an option. It doesn't have to be the actual thing that the punishment sentence you're served, but it can be an option. So murder is a capital offense because if you are sentenced in a specific way, you can be sentenced to death for murder. And then also there's different types of crimes. There's state crimes versus federal crimes. It's so complex. The law is so complex that I don't want to get into state versus federal crimes, but just know that there's a difference between like being tried in a state in terms of like what is your legal course of action versus being tried in the federal government. Totally different because there's different laws that apply, there's different procedures that apply. Like I think Louisiana has a completely different like model of how courts work versus like every other state. So there's like really weird specific things that exist. And then civil court, just because you are out of the the woods criminally, like just because you didn't do anything illegal, does not necessarily mean you're not gonna get sued. So again, when I mentioned like shitty companies will, if they can't get you on actual charges, they will sue you for damages. And damages can be nuts, because damages basically means like, oh, this was a cost during like repair. So we needed to get a new server, and they bought, like, you destroyed our server by like overflowing a buffer and like breaking an SSD. You destroyed the Pony server. We're gonna buy a new server, double that value. That's our damages. You destroyed the Pony server. Nate and I went to lunch yesterday and had $300 worth of lunch. That's part of our damages. You're liable for that. You think that's a joke, but like this is an actual thing that happens. They track, when you are incentivized to maximize the amount of damage that has happened to you, people will do stuff like this. It's, you know, you can make it a felony offense in like the actual law if there's more than $5,000 of damages. So like one fancy dinner with a big company to discuss the results of this, like an attack that you do, can rack up $5,000 in damages. So, you know, really be careful with that, because they could sue you, or, you know, try and put you in jail. So what makes a crime a crime? There are two things that make a crime a crime. The first thing is that there is a specified state of mind or intent. Second thing is that a crime occurred. The first thing is the most important, because crimes can occur, and if there's no intent to commit a crime, you can get off. And there's factions to that. We're gonna, you know, we'll go through all of it. So intent, really important. Mens rea is the requisite guilty state of mind. What that means is mens rea is the intent to do crimes. You cannot be charged for a crime if there was no mens rea. They will try, like people will try to charge you for a crime, but if you can prove that there was no like intent to commit a crime, then you cannot be charged for it. Well, you can be charged, you cannot be found guilty for it. So there's specific intent versus general intent, versus like criminal negligence. The specific intent is like, I have the specific intention to punch Anakin in the face. That is specific intent. General intent is, I have the general intent to punch someone in the face. I don't know who, but I'm going to punch someone in the face. And then criminal negligence is, I know that this is a high rate of face punching area, and I'm going to like ignore, like I'm the supervisor for the face punching to make sure there's no face punching, and I'm going to ignore it. Like I'm going to just turn my chair around and look at the wall. You are being so negligent, knowing that there's a risk. You're completely aware that there's a risk, or you should have been aware that there's a risk, and you are just not looking at it to such an extent that it's criminal. And then again, there's 4 intent definitions that are really important under the law: purposefully, knowingly, recklessly, and negligently. I'm not going to go into them. That's too much text. Just know that, you know, purposefully means you wanted it to happen. Negligent, knowingly means you knew it would happen, could happen. Recklessly means that you knew it could happen and you knew the risks and didn't care. And negligently means you should have known the risks, but you didn't. Crimes, but like not really, but also yes, but like kind of. Solicitation of a crime means you are asking for someone else to commit a crime, or you are asking for something that is a crime. The solicitation of drugs, solicitation, like asking someone else, can I buy drugs from you, with intent to actually purchase those drugs, can be a crime. The icky one here is solicitation of child pornography. That is a crime. If you actually intend to acquire child pornography, it is solicitation of child. You are soliciting, and you solicit someone else for child pornography. That is a crime. Facilitation means assisting in the crime, that you are the getaway driver, you are the person who like opens the safe, like you are the person who picks the lock on the safe or blow, I mean, that you're just committing a crime at that point. But like, you're the getaway driver and you knew that you're the getaway driver. If you sell a lockpick to someone who goes and picks a lock and then robs someone's house, you're not liable for that because you had no intent. You were just selling a lockpick to someone. That gets icky when it's like malware, right? Are you liable if you're developing malware for someone? It's an ongoing conversation that is like still working its way through the law, still working its way through society. Conspiracy is planning. So that is, I want to commit a crime and let's commit a crime. And then there's some notes on there and we'll talk about it in a second. And then an attempt is trying. So attempted murder is attempting to murder someone, trying to murder someone. Attempted assault or attempted like battery is trying to punch someone in the face. Quick notes on conspiracy. There's kind of two parts that will make it a conspiracy. It's an agreement by 2 or more people to commit like a specific crime. So I want to burn someone's house down, and then followed by a overt act by one of those people towards the commission of that crime. So the overt act doesn't have to be illegal. So I want to commit arson against Nate, and then someone else agrees with me. And let's go like burn down Nate's house, right? And then I go buy gasoline. The act of buying gasoline isn't illegal, but the fact that it's coupled with that agreement between me and Anakin to burn down Nate's house makes it conspiracy. So, and then again, yeah.
I have a question about like, let's say that you're just planning a crime like to plan it, not to actually commit it. Is that like allowed?
Intent matters. How we would burn down Nate's house and casually discussing how we would burn down Nate's house, even if we go into detail, is not chargeable unless you actually intend to burn down Nate's house.
So you can actually like intend to work out this house, but somehow like your plan is found and you can just say that we are trying to buy gasoline for our car or picnic.
Yes, and it will get, yes, and that is something that gets debated all the time in the courts. Say, or like another great example of like kind of things like that, an argument that people will use is if you don't know something is illegal, you can't be charged or found guilty for something that you didn't know was illegal. So lawyers will use the stupidity defense on people, which basically says, my client is so stupid, they didn't know that this was illegal. Which it's a real legal defense. So like if your plans were so bad and they were found out and you just say like, oh, we were just doing it as a joke. I mean, again, intent matters. It would probably take it would be very specific to that case. I mean, there's generalized ways to go about it, but you know, like another thing is the in Minecraft defense. This is like an actual thing that's in court documents now, where people would make the joke where it's like, oh, I want to kill this person in Minecraft, right? Or like, I want to punch this person in the face in Minecraft, and like using the cover of in Minecraft. This was in a federal court. I'm not joking. This was in a federal court document. It's the funniest thing. I'll link it. But like, I want to punch this person or I want to kill this person in Minecraft. If you still intend to actually kill that person, it doesn't matter if you're saying in Minecraft. It's like how the mafia would say, like, yeah, go take care of that person for me, you know, take him out for like some dinner or something like that. When in reality, they're just saying like, go kill that person. And it's hard to prove that you actually intend to go do that criminal thing, but there's arguments there that like, yes, you did intend to do that by saying go take care of that person. What you actually meant was go kill that person. And the mafia would use that for years to say we aren't liable because we just said take care of it. Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Hello. We're back. That was weird. Thank you. How long was it gone? Okay, cool. That was really weird. So yeah, again, intent matters in all of these things. If you can, like, if you want to burn down Nate's house and you buy gasoline and you have a plan, that's probably conspiracy. Like even if you didn't intend to, you still had an agreement that you were going to and bought gasoline for it. You can probably be charged for conspiracy to commit arson. And there's weird exceptions, especially with like murder. So like second degree murder is less than first degree murder, and it's basically like murder of passion, where say you found out that your partner was cheating on you, and in this fit of rage, you punched this person punched the person your partner was cheating with really hard, and that person falls down a flight of stairs and dies. You were intending to harm that person, you weren't intending to kill them. So, and it was also like out of this like fit of rage. It's like kind of icky. It's called a crime of passion. And it's like, you're like, you suddenly become in like an elevated emotional state and then you like commit a murder. It's icky. It's up for debate, but it exists. And right now we're not talking about what should be, we're talking about what is. So, yeah.
In China, the kind of intent to murder or like error, like you made an error, but it's like you do not intend to murder, but the result is that
Oh, camera's gone.
and like if you
Just froze.
accidentally murder someone, I would say I was a murderer, kill someone. If like that person trying to punch you, then yeah, there are two crimes, which is firstly you are you are rightfully defending yourself, so that's not
Self-defense, yeah.
yeah, self-defense. And there is another one which is overreacting self-defense, which is also not a crime, but yeah, because it's self-defense.
Someone tries to punch you and you shoot them, basically.
Yeah,
Got it. That's interesting. That's interesting. Thank you for your perspective.
but it may also be a crime, but it will be
Less.
considered less, like a lot lesser. Because
Yeah.
it's
That's kind of where it applies in like second degree murder versus first degree murder. So first degree murder is you intend to kill someone fully, like with the intent, like I'm gonna kill that person, and you plan it out. Second degree murder is like, oh, I'm trying to defend myself. This person tried to punch me, I shoot them. So it's, it's not as bad, but it's still bad. Yeah, go ahead.
So you said that like if the person's emotions get like elevated,
They can't get away with it. Like you still be charged for something, but it might not be as bad as I want to kill this specific person. I'm going to plan to kill this specific person. Or in the case of security, I want to hack this specific computer. I'm going to plan to hack this specific computer with the intent to hack it. And we're going to get into computer crimes in a second. But murder's different, and this is a class on security and the law, so it's it's not totally relevant. So
I've always had this question.
Yeah.
Is where you're driving. So if you're driving and you get like or get something in your eye, or you have or you get a disability, right? Like when driving, you didn't have it before. And
something gets in your eye, something gets on your windscreen.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you kill someone or like
Yeah.
are you guilty?
I think it would just be considered an accident and like a tragic one at that. It'd be involuntary manslaughter, and manslaughter is really like interesting. I can share I have notes. I'm taking CS498 right now, law and policy right now within like computers and security. I have some interesting notes on that I can share with you. It goes back to intent. And there's a form of intent, which is negligence, which means you know the risks and you ignored them. So if you had that hindrance when you started driving and you kept driving, then yeah, you might be criminally negligent. It can be found with voluntary manslaughter, which is just like, I didn't care in an accident. But otherwise, no, you can't be charged for a crime. It would just be a tragic accident. Yeah.
How would someone else know that someone's intent? Like I can say I intended to do something, but maybe I didn't.
it's really hard, and that's what a lot of court cases are like decided on and debated upon. Like, did you legitimately intend to do something? Or did you not intend to do it and it just happened? So, you know. All right. Any other questions? Cool. Let's talk about computer crimes. So this is not about what is right. This is about what exists. So let's talk about CFAA. So the CFAA is a Computer Crime Abuse Act. It was created in 1986, and it really has not been updated a lot since then. So a lot of these laws are super outdated and they are super arbitrary, which can lead to some like questionable kind of icky stuff. So I am like 99% sure that all the CFAA does right now is that it protects data at rest. Which basically there's a difference between data at rest and data in motion. Data at rest is things in storage or things on a computer, et cetera, et cetera. Data at motion is things moving from one place to another. So if you intercept a Wi-Fi signal, that's a whole different law than the CFAA. Like if you intercept packets over a network, that's a different law. You could probably also be charged for the CFAA somehow because it's a big law. Yeah, so it's arbitrary and unclear, and I can't cover all of it in like 10 minutes. It's impossible. So I'm gonna try and cover it as much as I can appropriately. So this will be a super duper brief summary of the CFAA. So there's 7 distinct crimes under the CFAA. There's obtaining classified information to injure the US or aid a foreign power. This is not going to apply to probably any of us. Just because you are obtaining classified information. Most likely what you're doing is you're at probably 2, 4, or 5 are the things that are most often charged for. So section 2. Is you are accessing a computer without authorization or exceeding authorized access and obtaining information. So I highlighted exceeding authorized access because the concept of what defines authorized access and what defines exceeding authorized access is very much up for debate. Even the concept of what dictates authorized and what dictates access is still up for debate in the courts. So 3 is unauthorized access to US government computers. I think that one's pretty reasonable. Like, don't attack like government computers. And then 4 is another federal crime that is combined with unauthorized access. So like kind of 2. So if you commit like breaking and entering, and then you also like do like some computer from like 2 accessing a computer without authorization or exceeding access, then it will be tried under crime 4. Then the 5th one is unauthorized access plus damage. And damage, again, I mentioned it earlier, really arbitrary. So like I have a long list of things that dictate like what can be counted under damage, and the one that sticks out to me is always like if they have a lunch to discuss this event and it costs a ton of money, they can put that under the damages. Then 6 is something that's not often tried because it's really hard to like try people for it. Computer password trafficking. So like sharing your Netflix password or like breaking into a system and then stealing passwords is technically chargeable under section 6, but it's really often not charged because like where does that apply if it's where am I sitting on it? Where does that apply if it is like publicly accessible? Like if there's just passwords sitting on an S3 bucket in plain text and you find them, is that a crime? I don't know. What do you guys think? Yeah. Yeah.
Like there are lots of like Git notifications also that have like lists of common passwords. So like why are those allowed to exist?
Because I can give you what I think is the reason. I can't give you the actual answer because I don't know the actual answer. I believe once it becomes functionally public information, it's public, it's out there. Like so many people it's like I would consider it to be analogous to like what's that law that says if a noun becomes a verb, the post-it law, where everyone was calling post-it notes post-it, like it was a post-it note. And because people were starting to use that as like the common term for that thing, the company can no longer hold on to the trademark of that. So if a list of, it's kind of analogous to that in the sense where it's like, if a list of passwords goes so public and so many people can access it, is it really like, is just accessing that really illegal at this point? And that's, it's still kind of up for debate, right? Because then take passwords and replace that with someone's leaked nude images, right? Like, is the act of getting those and leaking those was almost certainly illegal. So is it illegal to view them? It's just up in the air. Yeah.
Again, I'm also not a lawyer, but my understanding is that's pretty much how a lot of non-disclosure work, where if I sign a non-disclosure, say I work at Intel, and if someone else releases something, I can refer to the thing that has been leaked in the context of here's this thing that's not public, and then I can speak about it. Because the fact that it is now public means that my NDA is unenforceable. I'm not the one actually exposing it because it is already public.
I think this is really interesting because like these are more like opinions, and like because I kind of like legal stuff, so I'm like
So
like in China there is more ends. For example, like there is a endangering country security, which is kind of like access,
like 1 or 3.
access to government.
Yeah.
And they're also endangering public danger, which are like trying to get into security stuff and you're trying to do something to actually public. And if you're trying to steal stuff, like either using computer password cracking or other means, you have like unauthorized access to like citizens' privacy. Yeah, that's a crime. And also there are like if you're trying to like steal someone's say Facebook account or Venmo account, get some money, then that could be a fraud. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be a computer crime. And
that applies kind of in United States law too. Thank you very much. It's really good to have perspectives especially from like other countries and other countries' law, because right now we're focusing on US law. European law and UK law and Australian law, law in Mexico, Spanish law. It's totally different. We're talking about US law because it's the most applicable to us. But like Chinese law is applicable, and it can also extend. So like US law can technically, there's what's called a long arm clause, where it can like kind of extend outside of the US. So if someone from Russia commits a computer crime in the United States, they can be charged for a crime in the United States, but what are you going to do about it? They just charge them and like that's it. You really can't. There's no extradition clause from Russia to the United States. What do you do about it?
I think if you're committing a crime to someone in the US or like in some vessel or in the lands of the US, or you are committing a crime that is agreed by like an international crime organization. I'm not sure what's official. There's an international crime countries, and there are like a lot of crimes that are really severe, like selling slaves or something. Like, for these crimes, as long as you're committing one of those, and you're like and like the country, like US is in the organization, that they can charge it. Right?
Yeah. I believe what you're talking about is wonderful. One of the issues is that the UN has a seat that can't compel any country to do anything.
Yep.
So the things they negotiate on are the things that are really controversial, like human trafficking, sex slavery, and that sort of thing. So things like hacking, where there's a questionable like motivation from each side, there's going to be no extradition agreements.
It's not responsible.
The first time the UN actually ever did something about, the United Nations actually ever did something about a computer crime was in like 2017, and they couldn't actually do anything about it. They just sent over forensic analysts to just like look at the damage after the fact. So they couldn't do anything about it, which is, it's weird. This is a whole, I mean, this is a new thing in the grand scheme of law and in the grand scheme of policy and just international relations. Computer crimes are very new. So, important thing, actually ask the professor of law and policy what I should talk about. And he mentioned things that are laws that are not the CFAA. So I did a little bit of research here, kind of like the 4 that stuck out to me. There's data in transit laws. So if you are war driving, which is basically the act of driving around in a car with a bunch of antennas and picking up information, that's a crime. So like if you're just looking at packets as they're traveling, that's a crime. Cell phone, like if you're attacking like a cell phone network, that's a different crime than the CFAA. You can probably also be charged for the CFAA, but you'll get charged for something else. Wire fraud is there's like wire networks across all of the United States. Don't like attacking them in any way is wire fraud. It's also like when you wire money to someone, it's using that. So if you're attacking that network, that's a different crime called wire fraud. You can also get charged for wire fraud for like really weird computer things too. So like just be careful there. First of all, don't commit crimes. As a baseline, don't commit crimes. But like it's important to be educated. And then mail fraud. So that now I believe applies to email. So technically if you're sending like a legitimate phishing email with the intent to like fish someone and get credentials, you can also be charged for mail fraud. And then there's like there's a ton of other pieces of law. And what I can tell you about that is some tips from not a lawyer. This is not official legal advice. When in doubt, ask for explicit permission before you do anything. Get it in writing that they're not going to charge you as long as you stay within a certain scope. That scoping thing is important because there were 2 hackers who were doing a pen test of a network and they got arrested for trespassing because they showed up at this, it was like a courthouse. This county hired them to pen test their networks. And as part of that pen test, they showed up at the courthouse and tried to get into the server. They thought that was in scope. They thought that was fine. It was out of the contract. They got off. They didn't get charged with like those crimes because they were like intending to do good things. But still, like stay within the scope if you don't want to have to deal with any of this. Check what the company is before you start like doing research on it. Really important because even if they don't try and throw the book at you criminally, they can sue you. No criminal charges does not equal you won't get sued. In America, you can sue anyone for pretty much anything. If you get in trouble, shut up, get a lawyer. Say nothing until you get a lawyer, because anything you can say can and will be used against you. They really, really do that. Like even if you say it in passing, even if you say it off the record, if you say it at all, it will be used against you. And also, be super careful. So like say you are arrested for a certain thing and you say, like they start trying to interrogate you and you say, I want my lawyer. And they say, okay, fine. And then they ask you, would you like a glass of water? You say, yes. Touching that glass of water gives them your fingerprints by the fact that you touched the glass of water. So you can effectively hand over biometrics. Just shut up, get a lawyer. Shut up and get a lawyer. And then yeah.
I've heard, I don't know where I heard, but that when you see provides tool.
So student legal services, it exists. That's the best I can say about it. I've had people try to go through student legal services, and it's for a lot of standard stuff. It's for like, oh, like I have like a marijuana charge, or oh, I have like traffic charges. They're not gonna deal with something like I committed a computer crime, or because for that you want a real lawyer. You want a real lawyer. Like I had a friend who went to student legal services because he was dealing with like a potentially shady contract. And he signed it, and they started doing some really abusive shit, and he wanted out of it. And the exit clause of that contract was really, really scary, and he didn't want to deal with any of it. So he went to legal services, and they couldn't help him. So, yeah. Most important of all of these things is be educated, know your rights, know what you can do, and know the law. Know what you can't do. That's it. So I went a little bit over an hour. Our next meetings are reverse engineering with Nate and probably Kevin, 1 and 2. So reverse engineering 1 is the introduction to reverse engineering. That is how to like access super basic stuff, how to look at code and figure out what it's doing, and then some really basic strategies for how to do like reverse engineering CTF challenges. And then the Sunday seminars will be reverse engineering 2, which will be like more in-depth tricks, like binary analysis, like in-depth actual static analysis. I think we're doing anger, which is basically like how can you like analyze code. It's called symbolic execution, symbolic analysis. So it's some really cool stuff. I will warn you, or not warn you, just get you mentally ready that this is when we start doing a little bit of the more technical things. So we're here to help you. We're here to help you. You can learn, you can still learn from nothing. You can learn from nothing here. We're not gonna start at a high level, but it's gonna get more technical for the next few weeks. So if you're ready for that, if you're excited for that, awesome. If you're not excited for that, reach out to us, we'll help you. That's it. YouTube, thanks for watching. Zoom, thanks for being here. Have a great one. I'm gonna stop the recording.